In Philadelphia, the plan was supposed to be obvious. Joel Embiid as the force, Paul George as the wing star, Tyrese Maxey as the electric guitar tying it all together. But by the spring of 2026, that version of the plan had already fallen apart. Embiid's season turned into another medical question mark after appendicitis led to an appendectomy, leaving his return timeline unclear and even his playoff availability uncertain. George's year took its own sharp turn when the league hit him with a 25-game suspension under the NBA and BPA anti-drug program. Two stars pulled out of the center of the picture, one offense still needing to survive. And every time Philadelphia needed someone to steady the floor, create a shot, beat a defender, rescue a dead possession, or carry the whole thing for long stretches, the answer kept being the same: Tyrese Maxey.
And it comes to Embiid. Scoops it to Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey! Count it! And the foul!
That's what makes this season different. The numbers are huge, around 28.9 points and 6.7 assists per game. He became a fan-voted all-star starter. He was carrying an entire franchise on his back, and he was making it look easy. But the numbers are only the surface. What really matters is what those numbers represent. This is not empty scoring on a drifting team. This is one player holding together a structure that keeps losing pieces around them. It's the season where Philadelphia stopped pretending this was still somebody else's team and started facing what the reality had become. This was Tyrese Maxey's team. And that would have sounded wild on draft night. Because 6 years earlier, Maxey was not viewed as the kind of prospect you hand a franchise to. He was talented, fast, fearless, dangerous downhill, but he was also the type of guard front offices love to overthink. Not quite big enough, not quite easy enough to label. Was the jumper real enough? Was he a lead guard or just a scoring guard in a point guard's body? Could he organize an offense? Could he really become the main guy? 20 teams looked at those questions and decided to wait. Philadelphia did not. And that's where the story really starts. Long before the All-Star votes, long before the max contract, long before the 50-point eruptions and the Garden heroics, it starts in Dallas, Texas, where Maxey first built the habit that still defines him now. He was born on November 4, 2000, in Dallas, Texas. He grew up in a big household, around a big family, in an environment built on hard work. And in Texas basketball, talent alone does not separate you for long. Too many players, too many gyms, too many nights where everybody in the building can score. To stand out there, you need moments that travel. Maxey gave people those moments early. At South Garland High School, he was a varsity force from the start. By his junior season, he was averaging 22.9 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 3.7 assists per game. Those are dominant numbers in one of the most competitive high school basketball states in America. But the stat line was not the part that made scouts fly to Dallas. At South Garland, coaches saw him as one of the best examples to come through there. The best example came in the Texas 6A state semifinal. Big stage, loud building, season hanging there. Maxey scored 46 points, not in a blowout, not in some empty showcase. In a semifinal against elite competition with everything on the line. His team lost in overtime, but the performance still told you everything you needed to know. Some players get smaller when the game speeds up and stakes climb. Maxey seemed to do the opposite. The bigger the stage got, the more comfortable he looked inside it. That pattern never left him. By 2019, he'd moved from local name to national prospect, McDonald's All-American. That was the official receipt. The line between a local star and a national one. Every blue blood program in the country wanted him. He chose Kentucky. And that meant the next phase of his career would play out under one of the brightest spotlights in the sport. And he did not ease into it. November 5, 2019. Champions Classic. Madison Square Garden. Kentucky against Michigan State. Opening night of his college career. John Calipari put him on the floor off the bench, and Maxey announced himself immediately. He scored 26 points and buried the late three that sealed the win. That was not a quiet freshman debut. That was a warning shot. For most young guards, the Garden can feel like a stage asking a question. For Maxey, it already looked like a place where he had answers. The building that will later define some of the biggest moments of his NBA career already felt like his stage before he'd played a single professional minute. The rest of the freshman year was good, but not perfect enough to silence every doubt. He never fully cracked the consensus top 10 on draft boards. Scouts loved the speed, the burst, the scoring instincts, the competitiveness, but they kept circling the same concerns. Was the three-point shot stable enough? Was the role clean enough? Was he a true lead guard or undersized scorer who would need the perfect fit around him? Then the world shut down. COVID wiped out the NCAA tournament. It erased March Madness. It erased the Combine. It erased the final chance prospects usually get to change minds in person. And Maxey declared for the 2020 NBA draft anyway. He had done everything he could in 1 year at Kentucky. The rest was up to the 30 teams and a draft board. Then came the strangest draft night of his life. November 19, 2020, the pandemic draft. No normal green room energy, no walk to the stage, no commissioner handshake, just a player sitting in Dallas watching names come off a screen and waiting for his. 20 picks, 20 decisions, 20 front offices passing on the same player, and every skipped pick felt attached to the same questions. Too small, unclear fit, jumper not proven enough, good prospect but maybe not safe enough early. Philadelphia finally called at number 21.
The Philadelphia 76ers select Tyrese Maxey.
At the time, the pick felt smart, but it didn't feel franchise-changing. He was not being introduced as the future face of the team. He was a late first-round guard entering a win-now environment built around Embiid and tangled up in the Ben Simmons dysfunction. Simmons had already become one of the defining complications of the franchise. Maxey was supposed to help, maybe energize the bench, maybe develop into a long-term piece. Nothing more dramatic than that. He signed his rookie-scale contract on December 3, 2020. 4 years, roughly $12 million total. In a league where max players could earn that kind of money in a month, it barely felt like a headline. Philadelphia did not draft Tyrese Maxey to be a star. His rookie year under Doc Rivers started the way most late first-round careers begin, quietly. Bench minutes, limited touches, learning behind established guards on a team that was thinking about winning now, not developing the 21st pick. Then the roster got ripped open. On January 9, 2021, COVID absences and injuries forced Philadelphia into a bigger gamble than planned. Maxey got his first NBA start because the team needed bodies, not because anybody carefully mapped it out as the beginning of a star's rise. Then he dropped 39 points against Denver. That changes things.
He could play another one, I'm convinced, as he drills another one. Give him 39.
Still bouncy.
Not because one game proves everything, but because one game can destroy the limits people placed on you. After that night, he was no longer just developmental depth, no longer just a fun rookie with speed and confidence. He had forced the organization to see a bigger possibility. The national audience noticed. The internal language changed. This was not a project anymore. This was a weapon. The only real question was whether Philadelphia's roster would ever give him enough runway to show it over time. That runway opened through chaos. In February 2022, the Sixers finally ended the Ben Simmons standoff and pulled the trigger on the blockbuster trade everybody had been waiting for. Simmons, the point guard who refused to play, refused to shoot, and fractured the locker room beyond repair, was sent to Brooklyn in the deal that brought James Harden to Philadelphia. The franchise had made its bet. Harden and Embiid were supposed to be the duo that finally smashed through the second-round wall that had haunted the Sixers since 2001. Maxey had to adjust again. With Harden running the offense, Maxey slid into a secondary scoring role and thrived in it. His speed and off-ball movement fit perfectly next to Harden's slower, methodical half-court playmaking. He was no longer some situational spark. He became a full-time starter, putting up real numbers on a team with real championship ambitions. But Philadelphia still couldn't break through. Another second-round exit. Then another. The names kept moving, the expectations kept staying high, and Maxey kept surviving every version of it.
In check and then went after that rebound. Good technique from Mo.
Maxey from way outside.
Doc Rivers was fired. Nick Nurse took over in 2023. Harden forced his way out too and was traded to the Clippers in November 2023. The revolving door of star guards in Philadelphia kept spinning. Simmons was gone, Harden was gone, and suddenly the player who'd once looked like a depth pick was not the third option anymore. He was the co-star. That's why the 2023-24 season mattered so much. That was the year he stopped being a nice story and became impossible to argue with. He averaged 25.9 points and 6.2 assists per game, both career highs at the time, but the volume was only part of it. The efficiency mattered too. This was not random production on a drifting team. This was a player handling real offensive burden next to Embiid and making it look like he'd been doing it for years. Then came the explosions. 50 against Indiana in November 2023, 51 against Utah on February 1, 2024, 52 against San Antonio on April 7, 2024 in double overtime. 3 separate 50-point games in one season from a player who'd entered the league as a late first-round project.
Knocked away by Harris. Here comes Payne. Ahead to Maxey. Tyrese back to his right. Spins it off the window. Count it.
That's the kind of stat that changes the conversation. At that point, nobody was debating whether he belonged. The only real question was how high this was going to go. The awards followed because they had to. Most Improved Player. Then the Joe Dumars Trophy for sportsmanship. That combination told you something bigger than production. It told you who he was becoming in the league's eyes. Not only one of the NBA's most dangerous young guards, but one of its most respected players too. Elite production and elite character landing in the same season. Then came his first All-Star selection, and by then the max contract discussion was no longer theoretical. It was inevitable. But before the money came, Maxey still had one more statement to make. April 30, 2024, first-round series against the Knicks. Philadelphia facing elimination in Game 5.
10 seconds left in Game 5. Maxey fires! He's got it!
Madison Square Garden, the same building where he had announced himself in college. Same city, same court, completely different stakes. The season was on edge. New York could feel it. The crowd could feel it. Every possession had that ugly finality playoff basketball can have when a team knows the year's about to die. And Maxey answered with 46 points. Not quiet points, not forgettable points. He drilled 3 after 3 into a building that wanted to watch Philadelphia go home on its floor. Then, with the season almost gone, he caught the ball around 34 feet from the basket and launched. The shot dropped. Overtime. In a building that usually swallows visiting players whole, he turned the noise into his stage again. That game didn't just save the season for one more night. It changed his category. After that, you were no longer talking about a promising guard or a breakout scorer. You were talking about the kind of player organizations build around. Philadelphia lost the series anyway. But what Maxey did that night became permanent, and that's why the summer of 2024 mattered so much. The easy version would have been simple. Sign the max extension immediately. Celebrate, move on. But Philadelphia had a bigger plan, and it depended on Maxey taking a real risk. Because his cap hold sat at roughly $13 million, far below the max money he'd already earned. The Sixers had a temporary opening. If Maxey waited, the team could preserve around $65 million in functional spending room and go chase another major star before locking in his new contract. A lot of players do not make that bet. Too much can go wrong. One injury can wreck the whole equation. But Maxey agreed anyway. His agents Rich Paul and Mark Murray of Clutch Sports managed the timing. Philadelphia used that flexibility to sign Paul George to a 4-year, $212 million deal. Then Maxey got his own reward, a 5-year max extension worth around $204 million. Daryl Morey later made it clear that Maxey's patience was one of the reasons the whole plan came together. One of the biggest assists of his career didn't happen in transition. It happened on a spreadsheet. On paper, the Sixers had built the version of the future they wanted. Embiid, George, Maxey. More than $600 million committed to the trio. A contender's payroll. A contender's expectations. Then the season started tearing holes in that vision. The big three barely existed on the floor at the same time. Embiid's body kept betraying him again. Injury after injury dragging the franchise back into the same cycle it had been trapped in for years.
Thanks for Being mic'd up tonight at Dem. Thanks to everybody with the Sixers helping us make that happen. Oh, geez.
George's suspension became official in late January 2026 and pushed his return timeline toward late March. By April, Embiid's appendectomy had only deepened the uncertainty around the franchise. The team that was designed to have 3 stars kept looking up and finding one: Maxey. And when a season starts leaning on one player that hard, you learn very fast whether he can carry the weight or not. Maxey did more than carry it. He made the burden look survivable. One of the clearest examples came on November 20, 2025 against Milwaukee. Career-high 54 points. Free throws with 7 seconds left in regulation to tie the game. Then overtime, where he finished the job. That wasn't some random hot night in November. That was the sound of a player becoming unavoidable. Every time the game demanded a solution, he kept being it. That's what made the 2025-26 season feel different. The production wasn't just loud, it was necessary. Around 28.9 points and 6.7 assists per game. Numbers didn't just keep the Sixers afloat. Numbers that kept them competitive while every other piece of the plan kept collapsing.
See, already has one 40-point performance in our first 3 games. Make it 2!
This wasn't a player surviving without his co-stars. This was a player thriving without them. And that changed what the contract meant too. The money was no longer about potential, no longer about promise. Philadelphia was paying for the one thing the roster could not guarantee from anybody else: availability, production, and shot creation when it mattered most. By then, the league had already started catching up. In January 2026, Maxey was voted in as an all-star starter for the game in Los Angeles. That mattered because it was bigger than a nice reward line on a resume. It was public confirmation. Fans, media, and players were now treating him like what Philadelphia had slowly learned he was becoming all along. Not a side piece, not a luxury, not a future maybe. The engine.
Played 25 minutes last night. Tyrese Maxey on the curl for 3.
And off the court, the rise kept expanding in the way it usually only does for a very small class of players. His partnership with New Balance reportedly moved toward signature shoe territory, a space reserved for stars with real market gravity. The image was growing because the game had already forced it to. But there's another reason the city connected with him. He wasn't only producing, he was building roots. He won the NBA Cares Community Assist Award and committed $1 million to youth organizations in Philadelphia. That matters because the story isn't only about points, contracts, awards, or status. It's also about the kind of presence he became in the city. Productive, reliable, easy to root for. The good guy reputation wasn't some soft extra. It became part of the architecture of his brand. Every award, every appearance, every donation, every community move adding to something that would outlast any single season. 20 teams passed on Tyrese Maxey. Philadelphia did not. And now the player who once felt difficult to define has become the easiest thing on the roster to understand. When the plan changed, he adjusted. When the stars disappeared, he stepped forward. When the pressure rose, he got sharper. That's why this season matters. Because Tyrese Maxey is no longer being measured against the doubts that followed him into the league. He already beat those. Now he's being measured against something much bigger. How far can a franchise go when the one constant in all of this chaos is him?